I've hit on this one quite a bit in the past week or so. Plus, I had Curtis Moore from Energy Fuels, and they're the company that owns, I believe it's called the Pinion Mine up north of, kind of in the Tucson area, north of Williams, and joining me to discuss what's going on. Talk about what's going on with the mine, but also they started transporting the uranium ore recently. Now, I will stress uranium ore, but have since, I guess, discontinued that. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Curtis, welcome back to the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, Jeff.
Give us quick, we'll get into the controversy that's kind of erupted here in the past week or so, but give me the kind of the nuts and bolts, 30,000 foot view of what you guys do up there at the Pinion Mine, which is north of Williams.
Yeah. It's the Pinion Plain Mine, which is basically a small uranium mine. Of course, uranium is the fuel for nuclear energy. You know, some people think we use it for weapons and whatnot. No, it's for nuclear energy. You know, Palo Verde is the nuclear power plant outside of Phoenix. Big source of electricity for Arizona. So if anybody knows about the benefits of nuclear and uranium, it's Arizonans. The best and highest grade uranium deposits in the United States are in and around the Grand Canyon. We didn't put them there. They're there. It's a part of the natural environment. Of course, we can't mine inside the Grand Canyon, nor do we want to, of course. But there are some very good deposits outside the Grand Canyon. And they're little tiny deposits, but they have a lot of energy in them. Pinion Plain will be about 14 acres in total size. What you see right now is essentially what it's going to look like during mining. And that little mine would produce enough electricity to power the entire state of Arizona for a year. So all of Arizona's electricity needs. So it's a pretty phenomenal little mine. And what we're doing is we're mining the ore. So the ore is just rocks that has a little bit of uranium in it. And then we're trucking that ore to our mill in Utah. So we're not dealing with anything that's highly radioactive or particularly dangerous. But controversy.
You're not transporting refined uranium. You're transporting the ore. When you say a little bit of uranium, give me like if I'm holding a 1 foot square or a cube of uranium ore, what is a little bit of uranium?
Yeah.
Or whatever measurement you want to use. I don't know this stuff.
Yeah. Well, first off, you could hold that in your hand and have no adverse effects. You could literally hold uranium ore in your hand. Now, I wouldn't eat it. I wouldn't sleep on it, but yeah, you can hold this stuff in your hands. It's not particularly dangerous. So what the average grade is 1%. So whatever unit of rock you're talking about there, 1% of that would be natural uranium. So that's the concentrations we're talking about. So one way to look at it is that every ton of ore we pull out has about 20 pounds of uranium in it. So it has 20 pounds of uranium and 1,980 pounds of other stuff.
Okay, so how much? So and then you transport it, so you mine it. You say it's 14 acres. How far down do you go?
Right, it's about 1,500 feet deep.
Okay, so like an elevator shaft type thing. I mean, and then there's a mine down there, and then you ship it up or
exactly.
Pop it
it's
up.
Like the Empire State Building turned upside down.
Okay, so 1 ton, you put it in dump trucks, the ore, which the ore also has other rocks and minerals and dirt and stuff in it. Is that fair?
That's it. Yep.
Okay.
We put it into trucks. Yep, and haul it.
Okay. I fell asleep in my science class, so you got to keep it at that level for me. So then you haul it. So 1 ton. How much is 1 ton in the back of a dump truck? How many tons is a dump truck? You think?
Each of the trucks is about 20 to 25 tons, I believe.
Okay, so you have basically, and you said there's about 20 pounds per ton. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's maybe 100 pounds of actual uranium mixed in the ore.
400 or 500 pounds.
400 or 500 pounds. Okay, so we're talking like if I'm looking at 4 or 5 bags of pre-mixed concrete, basically size, just to give perspective. Somebody's dug a fence hole post, something like that. Yeah. So that's all mixed in there. You drive it up, and then you got to get it up to your refining place in Utah, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, exactly. The controversy that has kind of developed, though, and you started shipping last Tuesday, if memory serves me correct, to get it up there. Finally, I'm sure this is taking years. How many years have you been doing this? I mean, this mine.
40 years. I mean, it's been like 40 years. I mean, this has got to be the most studied, litigated mine in like American history.
Okay, so you ship it, and you're going like on, you're going to hit I-40, go through part of Flagstaff, and then you go up 89. You turn to go to Tuba City, and that's kind of where the controversy has erupted, is going through the Navajo Nation. Touch on that.
Yeah. So, so during the life of the mine, it'll be about 6 trucks per day. 6 or 8 trucks per day, which honestly people would not even notice. I mean, you're talking about one truck every 3 or 4 hours, maybe. So it's not a lot of material. But yeah, so that is the route. So it goes down through Williams, across I-40, up on 89 to 160, and on through up to our mill.
Okay.
So some of the controversy that erupted was that the Navajo Nation, who, by the way, if anybody has a reason to be skeptical of uranium and uranium mining, it is the Navajo Nation.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
frankly, but they have been screwed. And so the U.S. government needs to live up to their obligations to clean that up, for sure. But again, we had nothing to do with that. That was not our industry. This was the industry of the 1950s, the 1960s, when our industry essentially was a weapons program. And so it's nothing like that today. But yeah, we agreed to temporarily pause transport. To be clear, we have every right and all the permits, every right to be transporting today. But we did voluntarily agree to pause just so we could talk to them and see if there are any reasonable concerns that we could try to address, and we are willing to try to address that. I mean, again,
Sure.
This has been many years in permitting. I mean, actually, previous Navajo governments have been involved in all that as a part of those approvals and all that. But every day is a new day. But let's see where it goes.
Okay, but you voluntarily did it. You said and I know Governor Hobbs was involved with that. And you said, hey, let's hold off here. Let's go back to the table and see what we can come up with. Yeah. And you're allowed to ship it through, even though it's Navajo Nation. There's federal aspects to these roads, I believe, if memory serves me correct.
Yeah. These are federal and state highways.
Okay.
So yeah, and federal and state highways, they're open to all traffic.
Okay.
That's legal. And that would include hazardous waste. Not hazardous materials. Uranium ore is considered a hazardous material because it does have low levels of radiation associated with it. It's probably one of the more benign types of hazardous materials that are trucked on our roads. But again, we may have every right to do it, but we're still more than willing to sit down with the Navajo Nation and again see if we can address their reasonable concerns.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying on Friday or just the other day. I was like, it sounds like they're trying to just make this right and do it the right way. You cover the loads covered, I'd imagine.
Yes.
Okay, so covered loads. Are there concerns that like an accident's going to happen and it's going to dump truck's going to flip over and it's going to go all over the road or something? Or are they concerned, or are you trying to ascertain the level and what these concerns are? Or are they concerned that the cover is going to blow off and dust's going to start flying or something? What's the deal?
Yeah, I don't really know.
Okay.
I think it's important to recognize that uranium ore has been transported across the Navajo Nation pretty regularly over the last many years, including, we hauled uranium ore across the Navajo Nation between about 2020 and 2022. I think it was about 60 to 80,000 tons from some other mines near Pinion Plain, kind of in northern Arizona, the Arizona Strip. There were 2 other mines that operated from about 2007 to about 2015. So there's been hundreds of thousands of tons of ore that have traveled across the Navajo Nation on many of these same roads with no accidents, no spills, no adverse effects or anything like that. There's been no issues with dust, no issues with spills or anything like that. So we'll see what the concerns are.
Okay.
And again, see if we can address them.
And there's really it's hard because you don't really have another route. I mean, you can't go north because you got the canyon there. You can't go west because you'd have to go all the way. I guess you could, but it's not practical. This is an economic route and the most practical route, I would imagine. Is there an alternative that's even close?
Not really.
Okay.
It would be 3 times farther. Plus there's some other issues with trying to take another route. This is the route. This is the route that all the federal agencies approved. It's in our permits. It's I said, this thing has been studied to death.
Went to a lengthy process. Okay, lengthy process. Curtis Moore is with us. Energy Fuels. We're talking about the Pinion Mine north of the Williams area. So back to that, I guess, concern. And I mentioned this last week. I said I'm glad you acknowledged what has been a problem on the Navajo Nation for so long. I mean, they did get screwed, and we're talking stuff back to World War II. We're talking stuff during the Cold War. We hit this extensively, and I'll put a link in this interview when we podcast it in the video as well, because we're doing video right now for those of you listening, on radio. I'll put a link to our previous interview, which was much more detailed. I mean, the Cold War, the industry that popped up, they left a lot of crap behind. Especially Native Americans were severely hit with ground contamination and sickness and so on and so forth. So you and I and many of us, we can get the concerns. I would too. Quite frankly, if I was there, I'd be like, I don't believe you. I just don't believe you. Yep. But I think it's a reaction and a knee-jerk reaction. And I'm not going to sit here and get into the long debate about the new green economy that they're trying to create, and windmills and unicorns and rainbows and all this electrification. That's fine. Okay, if that's the route you're going to go, you're going to need nuclear power. Palo Verde's the biggest, and that's an awesome place to go to. I've toured it. It's huge.
It
provides a lot of electricity. We need that. My point being, Curtis, we need nuclear energy if we're gonna go down this road. I may not agree with you, but if you want to go down this road, this is how we get there, and you're going to have to transport this stuff. Go ahead.
100%. Palo Verde was the largest power plant in the United States until the Vogtle power plant in Georgia surpassed it, which is another nuclear power plant. So now it is the second largest, nuclear or otherwise. You just get a whole pile of electricity out of nuclear power plants, and it's 24/7. It's baseload. It's clean. It has no air emissions. There's no carbon emissions. All that stuff. And I think like I said before, I mean, look, you may not like fossil fuels, and I get it, but you better love the heck out of mining.
Not just uranium, the batteries. There's a mine somewhere else that has to get the rare earth materials, the lithium, this and that. We can't have fossil fuels. Look, I get the reaction. I do get it, but I hope that cooler heads will prevail, and that the knee-jerk reaction will kind of go away, and see what accommodations everyone can come up with. How much are you producing up there? Just what's going on up there? I know it's been a long time coming. I mean, how much are you producing? How long do you see this as being a productive mine that's going to fuel what I think is a very growing industry?
Yeah, I think so too. We expect it to produce for, let's say, 4 to 8 years. We'll see. It's the history of these mines is you produce a little more uranium out of them than what you originally drill from the surface. They're really hard to drill out from the surface because it's a vertical deposit. These things are 150 to 250 feet, in diameter. Anywhere from 1,500 to 2,500 feet tall. This is the history. And it'll produce for a while. We've produced, I think, on the order of 4,000 or 5,000 tons of material so far. It'll be 4 to 6 trucks per day. So if you multiply 20 by that, that's 6 to 8 trucks per day. So that would be doing my math, 120 to 160 tons per day being shipped from the mine to the mill. And it's a great place. And again, this is natural uranium. And this is, I think, another place where a lot of people get kind of hung up, where they think if there's an accident, you're going to have like a Chernobyl, nuclear disaster or something like that. That's just couldn't be farther from the truth. I mean, this stuff is really, I've heard some people say, look, you guys are hauling gravel and dirt, right? I mean, it's not that, and we don't want to minimize it. You have to do it properly.
Sure.
But if there were an accident, for instance, it's not like you'd have
it's not going to blow up.
It's not going to blow up. It can't catch on fire. It can't explode. It can't, release noxious fumes. I mean,
there's not a mushroom cloud. No. I mean, I'm just trying to paint it all here.
No. Well, and it's important to know that, people are, some people are freaking out about this, but they see a fuel truck driving down the road and that can explode. That can catch on fire. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that travels on our roads and highways every day. And I don't even want to tell you what goes through Flagstaff on a daily basis.
Oh, please
on the
don't.
rail.
Please don't. My wife and I were having that discussion. I was like, and a couple of buddies of mine, we were like, could you imagine all the stuff on I-40? And could you imagine all the stuff that's on the rail? And here I sit in this studio. We can't be a half mile from the rail. And I mean, Flagstaff and other cities take a lot of time to kind of do what if scenarios. And we've seen what if in, I think around the Great Lakes here, last year or whatever. What can happen just with basic chemicals that are running through there. All right, Curtis, keep us up to date. Let's just have cooler heads prevail. I think this is an overreaction, but again, I get it for what has happened in the past, because when you've been told, we're going to do this, we're going to fix it, we're going to clean it, and then it becomes a hard situation for people to get past. And I get that, but I will go back to, the beginnings of COVID, and when everybody's yelling to us, #science. I mean, there's a lot of science here as to how safe this actually is. So, Curtis,
if there's one thing I could implore people to do is trust the science. We are a good company. We're really trying to do the right thing here, and this is a great benefit for the area, the community, Arizona, the country. But you got to trust the science here. This stuff is safe. Not a problem.
Curtis Moore with Energy Fuels. Absolutely appreciate it. And love to hear from you. Talk with Jeff at iCloud.com. That's talk with Jeff at iCloud.com. Go ahead and send in comments and get you some final thoughts here when we come back. If you're listening to the podcast, please give us a great review and also give us a comment in there. If you're not listening to the podcast, subscribe. Look up the Jeff Oravits Show. Also on video, Rumble, follow us there, and on YouTube, subscribe. We appreciate everyone who's done that.
This is the Jeff Oravits Show.